G dem. I love popping pills. Where's the pills? Where's the devil? How did they do that?
What's going on? What is happening? Alright. Second time's the charm, boys. Second time's the charm. Okay, oh shit. 6 of them? Grenade! 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 Greetings, fellow council members. Today, I convene with you to bring up a matter of pressing concern. In the last 48 hours, intelligence has found growing activity amongst an old vestige of the more chaotic days. A group we thought no longer existed. They are the very definition of an unknown quantity, with the capability to carry out strikes anywhere across the globe, with knowledge of guerrilla warfare, memes, and an uncanny obsession with defending any YouTube gamer no matter the evidence. This evil cannot be let loose on the civilized world. Their name? Gamer. The joke is gamers suck. Did you get it yet? Yeah, things are a little different now. 1, you can hear me because I bought a microphone. Shout out to my pal Tangled for suggesting it to me. And 2, this video was sponsored by me. Yes, me, who finally managed to get my goddamn book out. Stick around at the end if you're interested. But let's not get sidetracked. We have a briefing to get through regarding this new threat. I am of the opinion that gamers are the worst thing about gaming. They're rancid, they're horrible, they usually practice poor hygiene, and they perpetuate disgusting viewpoints around children. So I'm finally glad Piers Morgan got sacked for it. Gaming has evolved, in my opinion, into something more than just a pastime or arcade-like interest. Sure, games like X still exist, but nowadays it's evolved into a storytelling medium, and if there's one thing that Little Nightmares 2 clarified for everyone, it's that I have a story stiffing. As I said in Little Nightmares 2, a good story acts as a motivation to keep playing even if the gameplay itself may not be as involving as Red Dead 2. But interestingly enough, this also kind of applies to Red Dead 2. What's the neuron activation I get from watching a washing machine spin generates enough energy to power the sun? Red Dead 2's gameplay was a little bit off from polish. The game aimed for you in traditional Rockstar style, the cover system was jank as all hell, the game would randomly try to kill your horse by having you spontaneously veer into a tree, and it hemorrhaged between its super open gameplay of exploring the world and its extremely linear story gameplay in which doing anything but what's on the script is a game over. Yet the tale Red Dead 2 told, an amazing story of an outlaw trapped on the border between good and evil whose whole life is put into perspective when terminal illness comes to pass, and the tale of a gang sputtering on its deathbed as it desperately tries to stay alive in a rapidly modernizing age at the behest of an egotistical maniac, made it all worth it. It deserves every single award it got for its music, its visuals, its character, and its story that, even on my 6th playthrough, made me cry buckets. But here's the kicker. Do people remember Red Dead 2 for its amazing story and for creating one of the best video game protagonists in recent history? Or do they remember it for the vapid wasteland that is Red Dead Online? That's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about how multiplayer ruins everything, particularly in the AAA sphere in which passion and creative vision got traded in for a few $1 billion and a fuck ton of meth. That in this current era of gaming, multiplayer modes are now becoming the rapid equivalent of a battle royale being shoehorned into everything. Which is a statement that sort of proves my point, considering it is a multiplayer mode. I also want to clarify that, despite the severity of that statement, I don't hate multiplayer. I just hate people. In my previous script, I spent way too long talking about way too little, so I'm just going to cut right to the chase and get into the action, mentioning a lot of different formats in which multiplayer intrudes on a game and, in my humbled opinion as god of the world, ruins it. Darkest Dungeon is a roguelike PTSD simulator that is pretty much a shrine to Lovecraftian horror. The meaninglessness of human existence, the presence of beings far beyond our comprehension, and big vampire GFs with big badonks that aren't from Resident Evil. It's a fantastic game, and as someone who has started multiple campaigns, played it during all of my free time, then proceeded to never finish the campaign and then restart due to a lack of mental continuity, I love it. I'm a sucker for permadeath mechanics, because it really adds weight to every decision you make, and the masochist in me loves the sting of losing a character I was truly invested in, not just because I invested a college tuition's worth of money into their gear and skills, but because I managed to create a relationship and story from the gameplay itself while still following a coherent plot. It was organic and it did it on its own. For instance, I had a Houndmaster who was practically the backbone of the team, someone who was always ready to fight when the chips were down, who was killed by a paranoid teammate who shoved them into the second slot and got them killed by the walking ham sandwich.
No, come on, no!
Fuck! This is just the same as with XCOM, one of my all-time favourite series. Squad tactics mixed with permadeath mechanics mixed with a fuck ton of fun gameplay diversified by the wide variety of aliens, here to one-shot crit your best guy through cover and smoke, while flashbang is a recipe for wondrous moments.
Are you fucking what? It moved twice! What the fuck?
Ass-clenching terror.
Oh, we executed it! Jeez, you did it again!
And beautiful, oh so beautiful
and
RNG.
shoot that fucking alien in the face.
What is this?
What is this crap?
But there's something both games have in common. No, it's not permadeath. No, it's not appeasing my masochistic tendencies. No, it's not even me being horny over Resident Evil lady and cheeked up robot. It's the developer studios not being confident enough in their games, so feeling the need to shove a multiplayer mode into the game. This applies a bit less to Darkest Dungeon, as I'm pretty sure Butcher's Circus was a lot more about satisfying the fun request of fans who just wanted the ability to stress spam their pals. But it's still a point to be made. XCOM always puts in a goddamn multiplayer mode that's janky and shallow and boring and doesn't work most of the time, because if you have one DLC more or less than the other guy, you can't connect. Not to mention it's unbalanced as all hell. Some people would argue a game adding a multiplayer mode is just trying to widen its market, that it's trying to make an appeal to more people to make that sweet, sweet plastic fall. But let's consider for a moment that someone does pick up Darkest Dungeon, or they do pick up XCOM purely on merit of its multiplayer. They're going to play these games, find out they are vapid and shallow beyond any long-term investment, leave a bad review of the game based on that, and then go and play another game. These kind of people exist, and if you don't believe me, thank God you've never encountered a gamer before.
On Facebook thinking you're bad, mate.
Another example I wanted to quickly reference was Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain, one of my favourite games of all time. The wacky and overblown anime-esque storyline, the combat mechanics, the feeling of being a one-man army behind enemy lines, it all culminates in Kojima's magnum opus. A game that truly lets you take missions on as you want without being sidelined into stealth or grenade launcher go. A game that also has one of the worst multiplayer modes in history, where it becomes a forgettable third-person shooter where stealth just goes right out the window. My point here is that these games, while admittedly Darkest Dungeon did it as a request by the community, is that a lot of games do have a lack of confidence nowadays to just stick to their strengths. XCOM and Darkest Dungeon are games that pride themselves on their raw difficulty and masochism and expertly tailored single-player experiences that carefully balance progression and difficulty. Metal Gear Solid 5 prides itself on making you feel like anime Rambo. So by putting out what I personally see as, at best, something to play with a pal to decide who wins a bet, rather than something to sink your teeth into, it feels like these games are putting in multiplayer modes because it's the cool, rad thing kids do nowadays, like smoke weed and make fun of the IDF on Twitter. It wouldn't be so bad if these multiplayer modes felt like their own strong gameplay existences, but instead they're so weak and flimsy that they feel like they exist purely because of formality, which is what I want to speak about next. The last 3 games I spoke about included multiplayers to their games as formalities. Multiplayers that were at complete odds with what made their games great in the first place. Yet these multiplayers didn't encroach on the overall experience. They were just add-ons to rake in extra cash. So at best, these are misdemeanors. What's the next level? Rainbow Six Siege is a competitive elimination shooter that released in December of 2015 to a resounding wet fart. And I know me bringing this up has already made some fans shift in their seat a little, so let me disclaimer this. I love Siege. This game was my Bible in 2017 and 2018. It's all I would play, and even now, I'm back into it. I was there to watch the recent Operator unveiling, and I felt super excited. I've never really felt that way about a game before. To let the record show that I love the game as it is now, and even want to do a video dedicated to the crowd of people who feel betrayed because Siege isn't realistic anymore, even though it hasn't been for 5 years. Despite Ubisoft's usual business model of mediocre open world sandbox in which the story is as unaroused as your mum, gotta hand it to them, they struck gold with Siege. But just because I love War on Terror the anime, doesn't mean I won't speak about how it sacrificed its single player even before it knew it was becoming a star. Let's rewind a little bit. The year is 2015. December. Rainbow Six Siege comes out. There are two camps for this game, the Milsim players and the CSGO players. Now the Milsim players picked this game because of the gameplay trailers and beta, seeing the deliberate decisions made to emphasize slow methodical gameplay as a more casual homage to SWAT 4 and other games. The CSGO players picked up this game because everyone on the internet was foaming at the mouth saying it was the next CSGO killer and, either out of spite or excitement, wanted to see if this was true. But what happens is that both camps find this game to be disappointing. It's unstable, it's difficult to get your pals into a lobby, multiplayer matches devolve into defenders sitting in a room and attackers anxiously crouch walking through the building. The terrorist hunt mode, which was a ball-crushing Crucible legacy from earlier games, is a mess, and we'll get to why. The game is both too casual and too slow-paced, so the Milsim players go and play something a lot more fun. At this point, the game is just fated to be another Ubisoft title thrown onto the pile of eternal mediocrity. But then something interesting happens, something that will make Charles Darwin roll in his grave. We witness evolution. One lone bandit main on defense thinks to himself, you know, maybe there is a world beyond these 4 stone walls. And he leaves the objective. Suddenly the game has changed. Next, players are defending rooms adjacent to the objectives, then the above floors, then spawn peeking and spawn rushing.
Stupid, I'm not gonna let you get the chance.
Some brave soldiers record this footage and upload this onto YouTube for the sweet clout. This attracts more players. Ubisoft catches wind of this and starts releasing DLC for the game. The new maps and new operators change the meta, leading to new gameplay opportunities, leading to new videos, leading to more players, leading to more maps. Quite an amazing revival to witness, especially as someone who joined quite early on in Skull Reign. But hold up a second, rewind the tape. There's no single player. Ubisoft pulled the old situations thing game studios do when they can't be asked to create a single player mode. Terrorist Hunt is extremely bare bones. There are 3 enemy types according to the wiki, which in reality is one guy, selecting weapons from an amazing selection of, at best, 5 different guns. The enemy faction themselves, the White Mask, are awful. We are given no reason to fear them as the intro cinematic tries to make you. Why? Because the AI's tactical competence is rivaled by that of an LMG-toting monkey. They either camp in a corner like Viet Cong, or they rush you like it's Stalingrad. There's no coordination between the enemy, there's no illusion of facing an actual military-grade threat. And in another saddening example of the game devs being too afraid to upset the fragile gamer, they skimped out on the terrorist part of a counter-terrorist game. The White Mask is legit said to be indiscriminate of age, religion, and nationality, and that they're an eco-terrorist organization who just want to kill everyone equally, as opposed to real terrorist groups with agendas and biases and allegiances and prejudices. And you're probably saying, Smug, why the semantics of a fictional terrorist group no one even remembers important to a single-player mode no one plays? And I would say because when you market your game like this, when you make deliberate design choices like this, when you consult with the goddamn GIGN about the realism of hostage situations to pretend like you know what you're doing, go the full mile. Make them an actual group that isn't typical Russian or Middle Eastern Cell 9000. Show me a reason to fear them. Also, I'm not given any reason to give a shit. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend Tom Clancy stories or plots are exactly one-shot levels of emotional investment when you play as macho white dude shooting foreign men 7289. But simultaneously they didn't include a campaign. They give you a 2-minute intro cinematic and a bunch of lame-ass tutorial missions as a replacement, paired up with a bare-bones terrorist hunt and a multiplayer that was nowhere near as engaging as it is today. They could have made a fantastic single-player mode that would have given me a reason to actually remember the White Mask as a competent and threatening hostile force. Take the Rainbow Six Vegas style of gameplay, where you play as a squad leader who can give commands to your teammates on how to engage in varying types of government-endorsed murder. You select 4 operators from the roster to accompany you for missions. For instance, Sledge could be taken to bring down defenses, and Montagna could be taken to scour ahead without getting shot. This would be accompanied by permadeath mechanics. If you lost an operator in the mission, that's it. You don't get them back. This adds a weight to every decision you make and also emphasizes that slow and methodical gameplay style Siege was aiming for initially. Not to mention that the enemies themselves could try to kill you in so many more imaginative ways. Different traps like gas bombs, considering it's literally in the intro cinematic. Machine gun nests, revamped enemy design, cameras that terrorists can use to spot you, communications hubs set up in one room in a building where officers can tell terrorists to flank. Make it so all operators' gadgets actually work. Actually having all the enemies spawn in the building and not lazily putting them outside to spawn so they just get behind you, which makes no sense considering they're a military-grade terrorist cell. And would have police snipers up the arse before we could even say the phrase, the militant nature of American policing only serves to protect those in power and is naive to the fact that those who commit crime do not do it for fun, but instead out of necessity or manipulation. Yes, this is a concept. Yes, it's not perfect. Yes, this is at odds with the multiplayer back then and right now. But let's not pretend that Terrorist Hunt right now prepares you in any way for multiplayer beyond aim training and map knowledge. So why not at the very least make it fun, instead of remove the one enemy type from the mode that actually made you shit yourself? They didn't make any positive changes to Terrorist Hunt in the 6 years this game has been out. They removed a feature from the game in those 6 years and rebranded it into Training Grounds, some really fancy aim trainer. Why? Because it's easier to make a single bar of chocolate seem like a nice dessert to the main course instead of one of the main fucking courses. And this doesn't even work. It doesn't. I mean, it helps to train aim, it helps with map knowledge, but a little bit, and in a really scuffed way. If they genuinely wanted to put in a mode that allowed you to learn angles and callouts, the community has been asking for years to just have it be an option in custom games to have infinite health and ammo and time, so you could destroy the map and see the angles the destruction would create. This arguably would take less effort than the minimal amount of effort it took to smear 2 inches of soggy paper mache over the 2-meter long crack in the foundation. And once again, I love Siege. But this is the way things were when it was on its deathbed. It didn't know it was going to be a success. It didn't know it would have 550,000 people in its Discord. It didn't know it would last any more than a year. So this is downright lazy, no matter which angle you take this from. In an industry famed for treating its game developers like shit. They're not paid enough to care anymore. Game development is just a way to make ends meet for them. Not because they don't have creative vision, but because the guy upstairs with the money doesn't care. I'm not even here vying for the return of true Rainbow Six, whatever that means. Change is a good thing, and it's lack of change in the industry that's a problem. But they didn't make a change because they wanted to be fresh and innovative. They made a change because the single player scenarios were just to exist as a bunch of flaccid, soggy french fries you got as extra. Welcome to the 10th circle of hell, paywalled off from the average gamer, of course. It's bad enough that the current market has created an environment in which games feel like they need to have a multiplayer to compete, even if it's shallow and at odds with their single player. The games who sacrifice their single players out of the laziness of their publishers, the ones who don't even try anymore and just toss their hats behind mediocre multiplayer-only titles, are a scourge on creativity and the whole idea of video games as an art form. But the depraved fucks that inhabit the 10th circle of hell are the worst of the worst. You guys remember Anthem, right? Yeah, me neither. Point is that this game was what I like to call a human centipede campaign. It haphazardly amputates and melds single player and multiplayer together in this super annoying trend of faking innovation. Sure, you could play on your own, but it sucked to do that because your experience was marred by the fact that the game design had been centered around you having friends. Destiny, the game it's an aesthetic rip-off from, did this same shit twice. And while I'm not going to diss people who enjoy these games, as objectively correct as I always am, I do understand other people may have fun in ways different to me pouring gasoline over my head and seeing how close I can get to an open flame. I personally think these games are fucking stupid because of one issue. Let's, for instance, consider the plague that is Red Dead Online. There is a campaign in this hellscape that's actually kind of good. It's not nearly as memorable or as moving as Arthur Morgan's tale, but it does play off themes of revenge that the other 2 games are founded upon. Not to mention the voice acting for the characters is just as good, albeit the characters themselves are far from iconic. When I first booted up Red Dead Online, naive and starry-eyed, I was looking forward to engaging in some more rootin'-tootin' cowboy shooting, because I really enjoyed the gunplay, as simple as it was. To my dismay, I have to play with other people, and the pain only really seeps in when I get to the first stealth mission. I bought a bow, was sneaking up on a pair of unsuspecting Del Lobos with 2 other randoms, until the 4th guy got out his explosive rifle and just killed everyone in seconds. This is a prime example of what human centipede campaigns don't really consider. humanity's ability to optimize for fun out of everything. When you play XCOM, these games punish you for making a mistake. Maybe you didn't cover your healer, or you left a guy open on one side you didn't think the enemy could get to. But as unforgiving as these games can be, if you fuck up really badly, the game doesn't really punish you as much as it could. The enemy will proceed to spread damage out as much as it can across the entire party as opposed to ganging up on one guy. Why does it do this? Because the AI's behavior is coded to not just wipe you out at a moment's notice. It's the same reason as to why the enemy AI doesn't just grenade you out of the blue. It punishes you for keeping your soldiers grouped together, yes, but the enemy never grenades you otherwise. Imagine how unfair the game would be if the AI behaved as you did, using one grenade to clear cover off one guy before using a squad sight sniper in the corner of the map to get a guaranteed crit. Single player allows for greater control of balancing and difficulty because you literally control one element's entire way of playing. The issue with human centipede campaigns is that you can't really do that with players. Humans are not predictable or linear in thinking. If someone is stubborn enough, they will find a way around your mechanics to play as they please. Instead of being able to easily scale difficulty or balancing by controlling player behavior, you have to incentivize them instead, which doesn't always work. Mordhau has this problem. I'm on the fence about ever getting this game because while I do love bludgeoning peasants to death in my spare time, the current player base is just the people who abuse feints and swing arcs to optimize for fun out of the game. And I don't use the word abuse to describe people just being better than me at it. I mean it. These guys spin their characters at absurd angles to hit you from sides you can't cover in time. It's the exact reason why I never played online co-op in Ghost Recon. The game is awful, yes, but I was able to derive some enjoyment from it in my own dumb way. The reason why I never played online is because people optimize for fun out of everything. While my AI teammates quickly shifted from helpless baby to Terminator robot on the push of a button, it was far preferable to having other players just wipe the floor of the stupid enemy AI before I even got a chance to enjoy myself. Now, I wanted to do originally an entire section dedicated to Modern Warfare 2019, or COD in general. I really did, and I even have that part recorded somewhere on my computer. But I've stopped myself because I want to do a separate video comparing it to the vastly superior Insurgency Sandstorm, and the things I talk about in the recording would only be brought up a second time. There is one bit, however, that I do want to cover for this video. When Black Ops 3 and Black Ops 4 released, they did so without single player. The first made the campaign accessible only to next-gen consoles, whereas the latter just ditched it entirely, opting in for the operator's shtick, which they 100% stole from Siege. These games are both shit, that's without a doubt, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend that them including campaigns would have made them any better. But it led to a really stupid point being brought up. Maybe single player is outdated. Maybe multiplayer only is the future. Maybe it's time to put old Yella out to pasture. And for anyone who still considers these questions, shut the fuck up. Bear witness to one of the best single player games I've played in years. Now, if you couldn't tell already, I'd sell my unborn child to play this game. Ravenfield is a low-poly FPS that emulates the big battles you'd see in Battlefield titles. It was created by Steel Raven 7 originally as a sandbox to test AI in before becoming its own game on early access, and I know that term is synonymous with never going to be finished, but this developer has made some solid updates and is even sticking very stringently to a roadmap for development. I bought the game for £10 and once I got started, I couldn't stop. And you're probably thinking,
Smug, this is just a less cool looking Battlefield, what's the catch?
every player in this game is a bot. You are one guy in a sea of enemy AI. You can make it so the AI suck you off every time you kill them, you can remove kill feed and hit markers, you can make the game as tactical or as arcade-like as you please. There's vehicle play, aircraft, variety of maps in the base build, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. The workshop for this game is insane. You can play this game like it's World War I, or like it's Star Wars, or like it's Vietnam, or anything. There are thousands of custom-made maps, weapons, skins, vehicles to download and customize your experience. I compared this game to Battlefield, but honestly, you could have Planet-side 2 level of battles. If your computer can handle 1,000 bots in a map, you can play it like that, no problem. There's a variety of modes to boot, with even a Spec Ops mode that, while it's not polished, is an exciting indicator of things to come. Ravenfield is a Lego bucket of fun, where even without a story to act as motivation, you don't need one. You make the story. Maybe you're part of a super elite team infiltrating a coastside facility to sabotage operations. Maybe you're an expendable soldier raiding the beaches of Omaha. Maybe you're just some guy with a saber and an air horn trolling people. Whatever it is, this game lets you finally feel like that one guy in the lobby who pops off on a 30 kill streak at the drop of a hat. It works because of what I was saying earlier. As it is single player, it's far easier to balance because the player is the only one you need to be worried about. The unlimited access to explosives and grenades and shotguns and flamethrowers doesn't hinder the game because it's meant to be a playground for the player. They're the one who's meant to feel like a badass. Simultaneously, you can make it so that AI doesn't immediately kick the player's ass by restricting their usage of rockets and explosives to vehicles and aircraft. But despite that, the AI is no joke either. It exceeds the AI competence of AAA games. They'll use cover, smoke advances, move in teams to capture objectives, fire from elevated positions, repair and man emplacements, as well as follow your orders to top it off. This was made by one guy. One guy. With some resources and a creative vision. It's insane. But let's step back and think about what this game would be like if a AAA studio got their hands on it. Modding support is already out the window, I can guarantee you that. They'd have made it like Battlefield with multiplayer, which would be unbalanced as hell considering how everyone has access to rocket launchers and two-shot heavy machine guns. They'd have made it look super realistic, which, as fantastic as it can be to have a game look like real life, it's so overdone. The charm of this game is the low poly look. Making it needlessly realistic is just gentrifying it at this point. It's egregious. There is a reason I bring this all up. The crowd of people who echoed this point of single player not being liked anymore, of there being a natural decline in the affection single player receives, just helped to smear bullshit everywhere. It's an artificial decline. When you keep putting out bad campaigns, and bad single player experiences, it leads to a downturn in players. Now, that's natural, sure. But then what happens is the publisher sees single player as less of an asset. They allocate less money to the single player budget, so the single player is then worse, less people play it, the publisher allocates less money, the single player is worse, less people play it. We go on and on and on until we get to today. It's an artificial downturn caused by a drought in passion. Everything is a battle royale or a human centipede campaign or multiplayer only and gives me about as much joy as a conscious vasectomy. It's the pinnacle of commercial gaming. Games are put out to make money, that's it. Profit incentives are heat-seeking. If they're raking in millions in cash from shitty battle royales and multiplayer only, they're not gonna change, they're not gonna fucking try, why would they? Instead they'll drop their unique and creative IPs to spend time developing another fucking battle royale, instead they'll turn a single player into a vapid MMO, instead they'll turn a single player into a game that can delete System 32 off of your computer. To provide more evidence to the fact that this downturn is artificial, let me compare AAA single player games and indie games. The most memorable single player games in the last few years have been, what, Red Dead 2, God of War 4, Spider-Man, Witcher, Cyberpunk 2077, Metro, I guess. One of these games, out of the ones I've said, has had the potential to cause epileptic seizures. Now let's compare the game titles I've taken to the indie game ones. One Shot, Darkest Dungeon, Before Your Eyes, Celeste, Deadbolt, Risk of Rain, Into the Breach, Undertale, Armello, Banners of Ruin, Lisa, The Painful, Terraria, Spelunky, Stardew Valley, Factorio, The Stanley Parable, Papers, Please, Night in the Woods, Prison Architect, Helltaker, Hard West, Hotline Miami, Visit the Police, Yumeniki, Katana Zero, Hollow Knight, Faster Than Light, Inside, Binding of Isaac, Super Hot, Getting Over It, Slave Aspire, Firewatch, Disco Elysium, and Cuphead. Do you see what I mean? Indie games are the last bastion of effort in the gaming industry. Sure, these creators do want money to some degree, but mostly there is a drive and passion that AAA games don't have anymore. And while one could argue that indie games are more single player centric because, as I said before, single player is easier to control than multiplayer, I think it's also because single player provides greater opportunity for exploring themes in a more sincere way. I don't think anyone can dare to claim that the amazing tale of Red Dead 2 would have brought the internet to a unanimous celebration if you had your mates talking about furries in the background. In earlier iterations of the script, I brought up the "I want shorter games with worse graphics made by people who are paid more to work less and I am not kidding" line to speak about Ravenfield. This is still true. If a game doesn't make my eyes bleed, I don't need to see someone's pubic hairs on a 3090 RTX, but it paved the way to a more poignant point included in the website I found this quote from. AAA games don't know what they are anymore. They are these giant, manufactured, optimized for profit experiences that everyone should care about, but it's hard to keep caring. I find it amazing that AAA games don't have to be good yet dominate the discourse for weeks on end. Gaming is an art form. It is. It's a medium no other can emulate. I'm even willing to argue that games like Battlefield and Siege are their own art, and while the former has been a victim of rapid commercializing, the latter to me is testament to how a shooter can be so much more than just aim and reaction time. But single player to me will always be the greatest embodiment of this statement due to its ability to speak to the player on a sincere level about its themes and its story and its subtext in a way multiplayer just can't do. Why? Because multiplayer puts me in a virtual room with gamers, one of the worst things the internet ever gave birth to, and it's impossible for me to consider the intricate mental states of each of the main characters in Night in the Woods while I'm having the entire Urban Dictionary of racial slurs thrown at me. Hello everyone, thank you very much for sticking through what is already a half-hour video. Chances are that if you're watching this last section here, you're sticking around to hear about the book. Before I get to that, I just want to say happy Pride. I probably won't get another chance to say it until July and Pride will be over by then. So I just want to say that you're beautiful no matter how you identify, and even though we probably don't know each other, I am super proud of you for coming out, or maybe you can't come out right now and you're having to hide yourself, but either way, I'm super proud of you, and please stick with it. Now, the book. The Sharpened Fangs of Lupine Spirit released in May as the first in the upcoming Voss Draemar fantasy saga. It features Corsair Cedrid, a skilled tournament fighter and son of a prestigious Winter Baron, who is sent off to war in service of his people along with his brother Ragnar. But the twist to this one is, as probably a little surprise to most of you, it features anthropomorphic animal characters. There's wolves, rabbits, deers, cats, and many more to come later in this series, as opposed to the traditional fantasy races. I'm super proud of this story and I'd love to be able to share it with you. The book is currently available on Amazon in paperback, hardcover, and on Kindle, also free on Kindle Unlimited, so more of a reason to grab it. Please, if you do decide to buy the book, please leave a review. I'm not expecting a 5-star from everyone, but it does help get the book noticed, and I'm always down for some feedback. The second book will be coming out later this year. The details are literally non-existent because it hasn't even been discussed when that's going to be published yet, but if you do enjoy The Sharpened Fangs of Lupine Spirit, please do stick around for the second one. All announcements are posted up on the official Voss Draemar Twitter page, and links will be put in the description. Thank you guys so much for your support. It took me a super long time to get this video done, and I'm super proud of it. Thank you to all my Twitch followers, thank you to my YouTube viewers, and thank you to, well, you, I guess, for sticking around this long. See you in July. Grazie di tutto. Ciao.